My brother smirked. "You're just extra in this family." And my parents told me to stop being dramatic. So I packed my stuff and left without a scene. The day they tried to open the beach house, I got 22 missed calls asking for the keys. My name is Elliot. I'm 33, civil engineer, which means I build things for a living and apparently do it for free at home. I bought a beach house when I was 26 because my mother said it was her dream and my father said he'd chip in when he could, which turned out to mean never. And my brother Cole, who was 22 at the time and working part-time at a car dealership, said sick, bro, and never mentioned it again unless he needed the keys. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The phone is ringing. 10:14 a.m. Let me go back to the dinner first. 3 weeks and 4 days before the phone started ringing, my family had dinner at my parents' house. Nothing special. Sunday. Jean made her brisket, the one she's been making since I was 11, and the kitchen smelled like onions and brown sugar and the particular warmth of a house that feels like home until someone says the thing that proves it isn't. I should tell you something about Jean before the dinner makes sense. My mother. She used to cut my sandwiches into triangles until I was 9, even after I told her squares were fine. She said triangles tasted better. She didn't say it like a joke. She said it like she meant it, like the geometry of bread was a hill she'd chosen and she was staying on it. When I was 16 and failed my driver's test, she drove me to the DMV 3 times in 1 week without complaining. And on the 3rd try, when I passed, she cried in the parking lot and said, "I knew you'd get it. I just wanted to be there when you did." That was Jean. That was the woman I bought a beach house for. The distance between that woman and the woman who told me to stop being dramatic while her other son called me extra, I still can't walk it without getting lost. Cole was there. 29, just got a promotion that my mother had already posted about on Facebook twice with paragraphs I could write from memory. So proud of my son. Capital S, capital P. Cole, who talks with his hands and fills rooms the way weather fills a forecast, big and confident, and always slightly more than necessary. Priya was next to him, his girlfriend, quiet, watching everything the way people watch things they're planning to describe to someone else later. We were eating. Normal. Ray, my father, was talking about a fishing trip he was planning, the kind of talking where you know the trip is already booked and the talking is just performance. Jean was clearing plates she hadn't finished yet, because she does that, clears before everyone's done, like she's already somewhere after the meal. Cole was telling a story about his promotion, how his boss called him a natural leader, how they were giving him a client-facing role because of his property management experience. I looked up at that. Property management experience. Cole has never managed a property. I own a beach house. Cole has a key to it. Those are different things. I said something about it. Not sharp, not aggressive. Just, what property management experience? The way you'd ask someone to repeat a word you didn't hear. Cole looked at me with a grin he's been wearing since we were kids, the one that works on everyone except the people who've seen it enough to know it's not a smile, it's a gate. He said, "Relax, bro, don't make everything about you." Then, still grinning, he said, "You're just extra in this family." He said it like a weather report. Temperature, dismissive. Humidity, casual. No storm warning because he didn't think it was a storm. He thought it was a fact. I looked at my parents. My mother. My father. Jean said, "Elliot, stop being dramatic." He didn't mean it like that. Ray said nothing. He was cutting his brisket. He didn't look up. I sat there for a while. The clock on the kitchen wall was the one I'd bought them 4 years ago because the old one stopped working and nobody replaced it. The table was the one I'd helped Ray move in from the garage after the old one split. The light above us was the fixture I'd installed because the wiring was bad and nobody else knew how to fix it. Extra. I looked at a room full of things I provided and people who didn't see me, and I didn't say a word. I finished my brisket. I helped clear the dishes. I drove home. That's the part that matters. I didn't slam a door. I didn't make a speech. I drove home and sat in my apartment and watched something on TV that I can't tell you the name of because I wasn't watching it. I was replaying "You're Just Extra" on a loop and waiting for it to stop hurting. It didn't stop. It just got quieter, the way a car alarm gets quieter when you walk far enough away, except you can still hear it, just enough to know it's there. The next weekend, I drove to my parents' house. Not to confront anyone. I'd been staying there on weekends sometimes, old habit, and I had clothes there, books, some tools in the garage. I packed 2 bags. Quietly. Nobody was home. I took my things out of the room I'd slept in since I was 6 and left the house key on the kitchen counter next to the salt shaker and a pile of mail nobody had sorted. I didn't leave a note. That was June 7th. My phone rang on July 3rd, 26 days. Nobody called. Nobody texted. Nobody noticed. But the phone is ringing now. 10:14 a.m. July 3rd, Thursday. Let me tell you what happened in between. The 3 weeks of silence were the loudest weeks of my life. During those 3 weeks, my mother posted on Facebook twice. Both about Cole. One about his promotion, a photo of him in a new blazer she'd bought him. Caption: "This kid is going places. So proud." The second was a brunch photo, Jean, Ray, Cole, and Priya at a restaurant I recognized because I'd taken my parents there for their anniversary 2 years ago and paid the bill. They were smiling. For people at a table where a fifth person was supposed to be, and the photo was cropped like I'd never existed. My father went fishing. He posted a photo of himself on a boat with a cooler and a rod. The boat slip is at the marina. The marina slip rental is $200 a month. I've been paying it for 3 years. My father caught a fish on a boat he docked with my money and posted it without tagging me, without texting me, without wondering why his other son hadn't called in 2 weeks. Cole went to a concert, posted Instagram stories, gym selfies, a brunch with friends, and then, the weekend after calling me extra, he went to the beach house. My beach house. There are photos. He tagged my parents. He was lying on the deck I paid $8,400 to build, drinking a beer, with the ocean behind him and a caption that said, "Family vibes." Family vibes. At my house. After telling me I was extra in the family that uses my house. I found the photos because I was scrolling Instagram at 1 a.m. on a Wednesday, which is what you do when you're 32 and in denial about the fact that your family doesn't think about you. I was lying in bed next to Kara, who was asleep, and the screen glowed blue on the ceiling, and I scrolled past a photo of my brother on my deck, and I didn't feel anything. That's not true. I felt something, but it was so far down that I would have needed equipment to reach it. I kept scrolling. I found 2 more photos. One was Priya in the outdoor shower I installed, just her feet, and the tile floor I grouted on a Saturday when nobody else showed up to help. The second was a group shot on the porch, Cole and 3 friends I didn't recognize, holding drinks, sunset behind them, and the railing I sanded and stained was right there in the frame, smooth and even, the wood grain catching the light exactly the way I wanted it to when I spent 9 hours with an orbital sander making sure it would. Nobody in the photo knew my name. Nobody in the photo knew whose house they were standing in. They were guests of a property they thought belonged to someone else. I checked my phone records during those weeks. The last incoming call from Jean before the beach house day, 11 weeks. From Ray, 14 weeks. From Cole, 7 months. 7 months since my brother called me. The last time any of them initiated contact was when the beach house water heater broke, and they needed me to call the plumber. I was the IT department. You don't call IT to say thanks. You call IT when something doesn't work. I should be honest about those 3 weeks. I wasn't planning anything. I wasn't building a case or timing a revenge. I was waiting. Not strategically. Pathetically. I was waiting for someone to call. I checked my phone more in those 3 weeks than I'd checked it in the previous year. I'd hear a notification and feel my chest tighten, and it would be Kara or Marco or a spam email about refinancing. And I'd put the phone back down and go back to whatever I was pretending to do. I was waiting for my mother to notice I was gone. I was waiting for my father to wonder. I was waiting for Cole to feel bad. None of those things happened. The waiting is the part I'm least proud of because it proved that I still needed them to need me, even after they'd told me I was extra. Being called extra and still waiting by the phone. That's the definition of a slow learner. Kara watched me check my phone for 3 weeks and didn't say a word about it. She'd glance at me when I'd pick it up, look at the screen, put it down. She never said, "They're not going to call." She never said, "You deserve better." She just watched. And on the 21st day, the day before I changed the locks, she said, "What are you waiting for?" I didn't answer. She said, "Because I don't think it's coming." She said it the way you tell someone the restaurant is closed. Not cruel, just factual. The restaurant is closed. It's been closed. You're standing outside reading a menu for a place that doesn't serve you anymore. That's the night I called the locksmith. My cousin Ravi called once during the 3 weeks. Not because he noticed I'd left. Because he wanted to borrow a drill. During the call, voice careful, he said, "Hey, I was at your parents' place. Cole's stuff is in your room now. Are you guys switching or something? That's how I learned my brother moved into my bedroom. The room I packed up and left. My parents gave it to Cole. They didn't call to ask. They didn't store my things. They just gave the room away like it was a hotel checkout. I was gone less than a week and they'd already reassigned the space. Wait, Ravi said. Did nobody tell you? Nobody told me because nobody thought about me. And then there was June 28th. My birthday. 33. It fell on a Saturday during the silence period. Kara made me dinner, pasta with the sauce she does from scratch. The one that takes 3 hours because she won't use canned tomatoes, and we ate on the floor of my apartment because I still hadn't bought a proper dining table. My college friend Marco texted at midnight. Kara gave me a book I'd mentioned wanting in a conversation she had to remember from 4 months ago. From my family. Nothing. Not a text. Not a call. Not a voicemail. Not a happy birthday emoji. Nothing. My mother threw Cole a surprise party at the beach house for his 30th. 40 guests. Catered. A slideshow she spent 2 weeks making. I turned 33 eating pasta on the floor with a woman who remembered a book I mentioned in February and a family that didn't remember the date they'd been present for 33 times. Kara started building the spreadsheet that week. She's an accountant. She can't help herself the way Sarah, the paralegal from another story, can't help herself. Numbers are how Kara processes things. While I was sitting in denial, replaying, "You're just extra," and telling myself it wasn't that bad, Kara was opening a spreadsheet and entering dollar amounts with the focus of someone preparing a tax audit for a client who doesn't know they're being audited. Beach house purchase, my down payment, $189,000. Mortgage payments, $1,850 per month for 6 years, $133,200. Property taxes, for $1,200 per year for 6 years, $25,200. Insurance, $1,600 per year, $9,600. Maintenance, repairs, the deck, appliances, the outdoor shower I installed, $34,000. Total beach house investment, $391,000. She didn't stop there. Parents' mortgage supplement, $1,100 per month for 4 years, $52,800. Cole's car insurance I'd been covering, $12,240. Auto pays I'd forgotten about. Home security system, $49 per month for 3 years. Cole's gym membership, $65 per month for 2 years. A storage unit my mother rented and put on my card, $110 per month for 18 months. Ray's boat slip, $200 per month for 3 years. Holidays, birthdays, family events over 8 years, $23,400. Emergency loans never repaid, $8,600. Total, $502,744. $500,000. Kara showed me the spreadsheet on a Tuesday night. I stared at it. She said, "I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what you've done." I closed the laptop and went to bed. I didn't sleep. I lay there with my eyes open listening to Kara breathe and the refrigerator hum, and I thought about triangles. The sandwich triangles my mother used to cut. She used to think about me enough to argue about bread geometry. I wanted that woman back. I wanted it badly enough that I almost closed the spreadsheet for good. Part of me wanted to pretend the numbers weren't real. Part of me wanted to drive to my parents' house and scream. And a small part of me, the part that's hardest to admit, wanted to call my mother and tell her it was my birthday. Not because she owed me a party, but because I wanted to hear her say she forgot and have it not be true. But the phone is ringing. 10:14 a.m. Thursday, July 3rd. The beach house day. Call 1. Mom. I let it ring. Call 2. Mom again. 2 minutes later. Call 3. Dad. I knew what was happening. July 3rd was the day my family drove to the beach house for their annual summer week. 3 hours in the car with the windows down and the cooler in the trunk and Cole's playlist on the speakers. They would have arrived around 10. They would have walked to the front door. They would have put the key in the lock. The key wouldn't turn. I changed the locks 2 weeks ago. Drove down on a Tuesday afternoon. Met a locksmith named Gerald who wore a Phillies cap and hummed while he worked and had every lock in the house rekeyed. 1 new key. Mine. No copies. Call 4. Mom. Voicemail. Honey, the key isn't working. Did you change the locks by accident? By accident. Like changing locks is something that happens by accident. Like sleepwalking, but with a deadbolt. Call 5. Dad. No voicemail. Call 6. Cole. No voicemail. Call 7. Mom. Voicemail. Elliot, call us back. Your father is getting upset. Call 8. Dad. Voicemail. The locksmith wants $300 and I'm not paying that. Call us. The locksmith. They called a locksmith. Gerald's colleague, probably. The locksmith arrived, started to work, and then, as I'd been told locksmiths do when the caller isn't on the deed, asked for proof of ownership. Ray said it was the family house. The locksmith asked whose name was on the deed. Ray didn't know. 6 summers in that house, and he never asked whose name was on it. The locksmith called the number on the property records. My number. I answered his call. I told him the property was mine, and I hadn't authorized entry. He packed up. He drove away. My family watched him leave. That's when the calls changed. Call 9. Cole. Voicemail. Bro, what's going on with the house? This isn't cool. Call 14. Mom. Crying now. I don't understand why you do this to us. After everything. After everything. After everything I paid for. After the $391,000 beach house. After the $52,800 mortgage supplement. After the $502,744 total. After everything. Call 17. Dad. Voicemail. If you don't call back, I'm calling a lawyer. A lawyer. For trespassing on my property. I wanted to laugh. Kara, who was sitting across from me watching my phone vibrate, did laugh. A short one. More breath than sound. Call 20. Cole. Different voice now. Look, I know what I said was harsh. Can we just talk about this? Just call me back. Call 22. Mom. Quiet. Almost a whisper. Elliot, please. 22 calls. I answered none of them. I sat at the kitchen table in my pale blue apartment and watched the phone ring and stop and ring and stop, and somewhere between call 14 and call 22, Kara put her hand on mine and didn't say anything, just left it there, and the phone vibrated against the wood and her hand stayed. Mrs. Henderson called separately. The beach house neighbors. Retired couple. She's known my family for years. She watched the whole thing from her kitchen window. She said my family stood in the driveway for 2 hours. She said Cole kicked the porch railing I installed, the one I spent a weekend sanding and staining because the original was rotting and nobody else noticed. She said Jean sat on the front steps and cried. She said Ray walked to the hardware store 4 blocks away and came back with a crowbar. He didn't use it. He sat in the car holding it for 30 minutes and then put it back. Mrs. Henderson said, I've been living next to that house for 8 years. I've never seen your father not know what to do. She paused. Then she said, I've also never seen him hold a tool he bought himself. That's usually you. I don't think she meant it to be funny. It was anyway. The fallout happened in waves. Small ones first, then bigger. A cousin told me weeks later that the dinner wasn't spontaneous. Cole and my parents had been discussing the family dynamic before I arrived. They decided I was too sensitive and needed to hear the truth. Cole's extra comment was improvised, but the sentiment was scripted. They planned an intervention for the person paying their mortgage. They rehearsed demoting the man who owned their summer. Kara's friend showed Kara a screenshot from a group chat. Cole had been telling friends for years that the beach house was his parents' place and that I helped out sometimes. He hosted friends there. He told them the deck was a father-son project. Yeah, my dad and I did the deck last summer. Ray has never held a power tool in that house. The screws in that deck have my fingerprints on them. Cole's fingerprints are on the beer bottles he left on top of it. The promotion. Cole told his boss he manages family properties on the coast. My beach house was a resume line. He leveraged my investment as his credential. The property he called me extra for owning was the property he used to get promoted. I built the house. He built a career on it. Priya called Kara. She'd been watching the favoritism for 2 years. She said Cole came home after the extra dinner and told her, he'll get over it. He always does. She said Jean gives Cole $500 a month from the household budget, money that was actually coming from the auto pays I'd been covering. My money, funneled through my mother, handed to my brother as an allowance. Priya said she was reconsidering the relationship. She said, I don't want to be with someone who treats people like furniture. That word, furniture. I moved a lot of furniture into that beach house. Aunt Diane called me. Ray's sister. She has a voice like she's perpetually running late for something important, and the conversation is between her and the car door. She smokes menthols on her back porch, and you can always hear the lighter clicking in the background. She said, your father called me to complain about you. I told him he should be ashamed. She'd been correcting Ray's narrative with the extended family, one relative at a time. He'd been telling people I abandoned the family over a joke. A joke, Diane repeated. A $500,000 joke. Your father thinks comedy is expensive, but family is free. He's about to find out which one costs more. Then Diane said something that rearranged every memory I have. Your father told me once, when you were about 15, that you were the easy one. He said he didn't have to worry about you. He said it like it was a compliment. She paused. I could hear the menthol smoke on the exhale. It wasn't Elliot. It was never a compliment. What he meant was you were the one he could ignore without consequences. And he was right, for about 18 years. He was wrong starting last month. The easy one. The one who doesn't need attention, doesn't need calls, doesn't need birthday texts. The one who builds decks and pays mortgages and changes light fixtures and never asks for credit because he was raised to believe that being easy was the same as being good. It's not. Being easy is being invisible. Being easy is being extra. Being easy is standing in a room you wired yourself while your brother calls you a spare part and your parents tell you the problem is your reaction, not the wiring, never the wiring, even though the wiring is the only reason the lights are on. The HOA sent a letter the following week. 2 years of unpaid community assessments, $3,400. My parents were supposed to forward the assessment notices to me. They didn't. They pocketed them, or tossed them in the junk mail pile, or used them as coasters. They were so comfortable with my money flowing in one direction that they stopped even routing the paperwork. The HOA was threatening a lien on my property because my parents treated their son's real estate like a public park. Free entry. No maintenance required. Someone else handles the upkeep. I paid the $3,400 because a lien on my credit wasn't worth the principal. But I paid it from the beach house account, not from any account my family had ever touched or known about. And I added it to the spreadsheet. Kara added it. She added it with the same expression she uses when closing a difficult client file. A very small exhale through the nose and a single click of the mouse. $506,144. The number kept growing even after I stopped feeding it. I canceled everything over 4 weeks. 1 payment per week. The way you dismantle something you built, carefully, not because you want to preserve it, but because you want to feel every bolt coming loose. Week 1, the beach house mortgage. $1,850 gone. I made the call from the parking lot at work, sitting in my truck with the windows up and the engine off. The truck was hot. The steering wheel burned my palms. I didn't notice. Week 2, my parents' mortgage supplement. $1,100 gone. I called from the kitchen while Kara was cooking, and she didn't turn around, just kept stirring, the sound of the spoon against the pot and the sound of me ending a direct deposit running at the same time. Week 3, everything else. Security system, gym, storage unit, boat slip, Cole's car insurance. All of it. I sat at the kitchen table and went through accounts for 2 hours, removing my credit card from systems I'd forgotten I was part of. Week 4. I called the bank and changed my card number entirely. Clean cut. Each cancellation triggered a separate phone call from my parents. Each call was about the bill. Something's wrong with the security system. Cole's car insurance lapsed. The storage unit is sending notices. For calls about services. 0 about their son. 0 about my birthday. 0 about the word extra. I counted. I kept counting because the counting was its own kind of evidence. Cole's lifestyle collapsed in stages. Without the car insurance I'd been covering, his registration flagged at a traffic stop. He had to park the truck he couldn't afford and Uber to work for 2 weeks. Without the gym membership, his routine fell apart, which sounds small until you realize that for Cole, the gym was his social calendar, his identity, his Instagram content. Without my parents' monthly supplement, the $500 gene had been funneling from my auto pays. He couldn't cover his credit card minimums. The golden child discovered that his entire life was a building, and I was the foundation, and foundations don't announce themselves until they're gone. Priya left him 2 months later. Not because of the money. Because when she asked him to apologize to me, he said, "For what? For what?" She packed a bag and moved in with her sister. She texted Kara. I asked him one question and he gave me the only answer I needed. 6 weeks after the lockout. 6 weeks of Thursdays. 6 weeks of driving past the exit from my parents' house on the highway without taking it. And each time the exit sign appeared and I kept going straight. The steering wheel felt different in my hands, like the wheel was learning a new route the same way I was. My father asked to meet at the beach house. I drove down. 3 hours. Windows down. No music. The salt air started about 40 minutes out. That particular coastal smell that's part ocean and part something rotting underneath, which is what all coastlines are if you think about it. Beautiful and decaying at the same time. They were all there. Cole, Jean, Ray, parked in the driveway of a house they couldn't enter. Cole was leaning against the hood of his truck with his arms crossed. Jean was in the passenger seat of my parents' car with the door open. Ray was standing near the porch, hands in his pockets, looking at the front door like it owed him something. The ocean sounded the same as it always does, which is the thing about the ocean, it doesn't care who's standing next to it. Ray started with, "This has gone too far." I didn't argue. I pulled out the spreadsheet. $502,744. I read the number. I said, "That's what extra costs." Jean started crying. Cole said, "That can't be right." I handed Ray the property deed with my name on it. He held it. He turned it over like there might be another name on the back. There wasn't. He'd spent 6 summers in a house and never once asked who owned it. Because asking would have meant acknowledging the answer, and the answer was the easy one, the extra one, the one who didn't need to be worried about. Part of me wanted to keep reading numbers until the spreadsheet ran out. Part of me wanted to get in my truck and leave without another word. And a small part of me, standing in the driveway of a house I built and paid for and wired and sanded and tiled, wanted my mother to say something about the sandwich triangles, something that proved the woman who argued about bread geometry was still in there somewhere. She didn't. She said, "You didn't have to do this publicly." Publicly. 3 people in a driveway. That was her definition of public. My invisibility was so thorough that even a confrontation felt like exposure. Cole showed up at my apartment 8 weeks after the lockout. I opened the door and didn't recognize him for a second, which sounds dramatic, but isn't. He'd lost weight. Not gym weight. The other kind. The kind you lose when the structure of your life falls away and you forget to eat because nobody is managing your schedule anymore. He was wearing a hoodie I'd never seen, which meant he'd bought new clothes because the life he dressed for before didn't fit anymore, or because Priya took her half of the closet when she left. He stood in my doorway with his hands in his pockets and said, "I didn't know about the money." I said, "You didn't ask." He said, "I'm sorry I called you extra." I said, "Are you sorry, or are you broke?" He didn't answer. He stood there. The hallway behind him smelled like the carpet cleaner my building uses on Tuesdays, chemical and slightly sweet, and I could hear someone's TV through the wall playing something with a laugh track. Normal sounds. Normal apartment. Abnormal conversation. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I didn't know about your birthday either. I had to ask Mom." He paused. She didn't remember the date. I didn't say anything. He looked at the floor. "I had to look it up," he said. "On Facebook. Your birthday. I'm your brother, and I had to look it up." He left. I closed the door. I stood in the hallway of my apartment and listened to his footsteps go down the stairs and out the building door, and then nothing. His mother didn't remember the date. His brother had to look it up on Facebook. The woman who cut my sandwiches into triangles because she believed geometry changed the taste didn't remember the day she was there for 33 times. And the man who called me extra couldn't remember it either, not because he's cruel, but because I was never stored in the part of his brain that holds important dates. I was in the part that holds passwords and utility account numbers. Functional information, not personal. That detail sat heavier than the spreadsheet. Heavier than the $502,744. Heavier than extra. Some numbers you can calculate. Some you just feel. I listed the beach house on Airbnb. Premium summer rental. $475 per night. I booked it solid for July and August within a week. A family from Vermont rented the first 2 weeks. They sent me a message after checkout. "Beautiful deck. The craftsmanship is incredible. Did you build it yourself?" I stared at that message for a while. A stranger noticed in 14 days what my family hadn't noticed in 6 years. I wrote back, "Yes. Thank you." 2 words. 2 more words of gratitude than I'd received from the people who used it every summer for free. 2 months after the lockout. I opened my mailbox. Inside was the Airbnb payout notification. $31,000 for the summer season. I used part of it for a down payment on my own apartment. The first property I've ever bought for myself. Not for my family. Not for my parents' dream. Not for Cole's Instagram captions. For me. Kara helped pick the furniture. It's small. The walls are still that pale blue. The beach house key hangs on a hook by the front door. Singular. One key. No copies made. No spare under the mat. No duplicate on the counter for someone who'll use it without asking and call you extra while standing on your deck. One key. One hook. No spares. First time in my life, I didn't make a copy for someone who wouldn't thank me. His own mother didn't remember the date. Would you have sent the key back? Or would you have melted it down? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, I'll be back.